Welcome.
Hey,
Wow.
it's my guy. I have to take a physics class.
Welcome. Can everybody, there's a lot of people joining us on this meeting. Can you please, for the moment, just or mute your mic, I should say. And we'll get started in just a moment. We just got to let everybody in.
I'll go into that room.
Guys.
All right. Thank you all for joining us. Alvin, would you like to kick it off?
Hey everybody, thanks Jesse. My name is Alvin Fong, the director of USC Graduate Architecture. Joined today by my colleagues Justin Stadel, our admissions officer, who you just met, and then Salwan Ting, the associate director of graduate architecture. It's nice to see a few of you that have your cameras on. For those of you who don't worry about it. For those of you who would like to turn them on, I do encourage it. It's nice to kind of get a sense of who people are and see their faces, and also for yourselves to see one another as well, because I think everybody likes talking to a room full of people rather than a room full of names. In any case, I think we've got a lot of information for you tonight. We're really excited to have all of you. There's quite a lot of people joining and registered. We've got 108 people on here. There's been about 250 registered, and people from all across the country as well as the world. So really exciting to join this with everybody. I'm gonna go ahead and share a couple. Still waiting for, if there's one more person in there. Oh, there we go. I think everybody's in now. All right. So this is the virtual information session for USC Graduate Architecture. For those of you that are able to, if you have the chance to, in the next couple of weeks, we will also be doing some events on the West Coast or East Coast in person. So with those of you that are in New York City or in the New York area, we will be hosting an event called USC Architecture New York City Alumni Diaries, which will be in New York City at the offices of Henning Larson. You can go to our website or our Instagram and find the link to register for this event. We'll have 7 recent alumni who will be speaking about their experiences at USC and how it led them to their current career opportunities. And if any of you will be going to the NOMA conference in Baltimore, we will also be there hosting a happy hour on Thursday, October 24th at the Apropos restaurants at the Baltimore Marriott waterfront. Both of those 2 occasions are great opportunities to get a chance to meet us in person, particularly for those of you on the East Coast. For those of you on the West Coast, we will be hosting another in-person information session, which is yet to be defined in terms of the date. Just to give you a little bit of background, this slide here shows a little bit about myself. My name is Alvin Fong. I'm the Director of Graduate Architecture at USC. On the left, you will see some of my professional practice work and my research. On the right, you'll see some of my teaching. And I think this is really important because this is something that connects to the way that USC works as a whole. And USC is an R1 research institute, which means all of our faculty are required to both not only teach, but also to have a form of creative practice or research, which means they're not only people that are teaching what they do, they're actually doing what they do, and not only doing what they do, being innovators and leaders in what they do. So the people that are teaching at USC are practicing architects that are winning design awards and building amazing buildings. They are creative practitioners that are working with innovative technologies. They are researchers that are leading scholars in their field or in their expertise, working with emerging technologies, or writing about critical histories, and really kind of pushing the field forward in ways that are highly innovative and really leading the field. It's something that I think it goes without doubt that I'm constantly going home to my wife and referring to how smart the people I work with are. And if you are able to come to this school, it's one of the pleasures is that you get to have these people as your mentors. And the people that are not only teaching you, but also providing you the access to their experiences and their opportunities. USC Graduate Architecture is technically 4 programs. We have our 3-year MArch, our 2-year MArch with advanced standing, and then our 2 1-year Masters in Advanced Architectural Research Studies. But really what that means is that there are actually 3 different entry points, or 4 different entry points to the same program. So if you were to look at this in vertical columns, year 1, year 2, year 3, essentially the 3-year students do all 3 years, the 2-year students do the last 2 years, and the 1-year students do the final year. And the way you would divide those is that the first year, for the 3-year students who come in with no previous experience, would do this focused in their first year on design fundamentals and disciplinary knowledge and skill building. In the second year, when the advanced standings students enter, we also begin to engage in professional expertise and technical skill. And then finally, when the 1-year students join us for the final year of what we call our research year, the programs and the projects focus on design speculation and design research. And so what this means is that it's actually 3 different entry points to one continuous program, but one that has the ability to have a bunch of different ranges of expertise, ranging from those that are coming in with no previous architectural backgrounds, who have previous experiences in philosophy, science, business, television production, fashion design, so on and so forth, to those that are coming in with a BA or a BS in architectural studies or architectural engineering, and all the way down to people that have a 5-year B.Arch professional degree. So the last 2 degrees are post-professional, meaning you won't get your professional standing based off of those. The 3-year and the 2-year, you will get a professional degree, meaning that you will graduate with the ability to begin taking your licensing exams immediately. We are what is called an IPAL school, which means that we are registered with the NCARB, National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, to be the integrated path to architectural licensure, which means that once you are a student at USC, you can begin taking your tests immediately, and you can begin earning your hours immediately. This was, sorry, wrong year, 2024, actually, not 2023, but this was last year's incoming graduate architecture class. We had 32 MArch +3, 38 +2, 4 in the Mars City Design and Housing, 3 in the Mars Performative Design and Technology. The total graduate population, about 161 total graduate architecture students. You can see the different statistics there. Very diverse in makeup, not only in terms of where people are coming from in terms of identity politics, but where they're coming from in terms of geographic locations, different states, different countries. Highly international, highly diverse program. Most of the international students are coming from China, India, Iran, and Canada, Kuwait, South Korea. And then we have a bunch of countries that have 1 student each. One of the things that we're really focused on is this understanding of architecture as being viewed in what I call the 3 lenses of architecture. which means I think oftentimes you will find that architects are what you're coming to architecture school for is probably what we are identifying as a lens of the profession, meaning you're coming to learn how to talk like an architect, learn how to work like an architect, learn how to communicate and deal with professional aspects of architecture. All of us are also equipped with what we understand as the commons or the public view of architecture, meaning the way that architecture is perceived by the general public as people who live and occupy buildings around us. But the other thing that I think stands out is what makes architecture architecture as opposed to building with a lowercase b, architecture with a capital A, is this idea of the discipline. And the discipline is the sort of internal conversations that are internal to architecture that architects have with other architects that kind of identifies the way we think about architecture as something more than buildings. It's what I would call materializations of values or materializations of ideas into the built environment. And really how we begin to interrogate, express, and materialize our value systems into the built environment. And we are now living in a moment where stability in society is not something that's really stable. But that's a moment for architecture to take advantage of, and we can express those things and really kind of take this moment as an opportunity to begin examining how the world around us, socio-political context of the world around us, really informs the way we think about design. And that allows us to really begin to examine how ideas are an opportunity to shape alternatives and imagine alternatives. And so the built environment begins a way for us, particularly in the academic setting, to rethink what the world around us could be like. And engage in an opportunity where we really begin to think about what technology, culture, and design mean when they intersect in the current world around us. And one of the things that I'm really fascinated with is this quote from Cedric Price from 1966, where he says, "Technology is the answer, but what is the question?" And so one of the things we're really grappling with here is how we interrogate technology and begin to integrate it into the way we think and the way we do things. But most critically is how we're using that technology and for what purposes. And those purposes are about coming up with great problems to solve. And rather than thinking about them like an engineer who's focused on the solution, we're really thinking about proposing the more interesting problem, creating problems to solve. And all of these things are ideologically the things that I think are driving the school and the motivations of what we do. This video here is a video you'll be able to find on YouTube. It's called "The Process is the Product." It is all actual USC students on our campus, in our building, really kind of showcasing some of the kind of fundamental processes we go through and the kind of emphasis that we put on process, where a process is something that is critical to the way we think about architecture, not necessarily as a product, but as a process itself. And I think if you were to really kind of look at the way that we're working on things here, whether they're full-scale prototypes, which you see there, different people from different backgrounds coming together, studying in this one building and engaging the field of design as a way to think about the future of the world. Really, we're trying to begin to think about how we can make the world a better place through design. And this starts with beginning to kind of think about this process of from tool to technique to techne. Thinking about how our core studios are like the tool, like the saxophone, the thing that makes the noise that we couldn't make without us. The core studios becomes the kind of way that you're introduced to certain techniques. The topic studios become ways that we begin to kind of manifest those techniques into known ways of working, like sheet music. And then the thesis studios become your way of kind of taking stake in your own position and really imagining your own problem and creating your own project to be solved, like Coltrane beginning to master all those things and be able to improvise. The first year core studios, as I said before, focus on abstract, fundamental, conceptual thinking, form making, craft, skill building, which you see here. A lot of physical model making. Physical model making is a fundamental part of what we do. These are some of the projects that are coming out of the first year core. There's also a series of what we call full resolution studies, which are large scale physical one-to-one size prototypes students just completed. So if you go to our Instagram account, you'll see a recent reel that we produced of the drone footage of the most recent one. This is the one from last year. And they also begin examining site and the kind of connections to site and sort of connection to the way we begin to think about architecture as something that's embedded in the ground and connected to the ground. In the second year, and this is when the advanced standing students join, we begin looking at issues of housing and collective housing in particular, and begin looking at projects that are examining the way that we begin to think about housing as something that isn't just a place for people to live. It's actually a fundamental component in the way the city is formed and perceived. And then we also have our second year comprehensive studio. The second year comprehensive studio is the sort of signature goalposts for you to receive your NAB accredited professional degree, meaning this is the studio that starts to get into actual code compliance, mechanical systems, electrical systems, circulation, structure, skin. The end results of this project are building that could essentially be about design development stage for an actual building process. And working with mass timber and CLT, cross-laminated timber. And then the third year is where the one-year students join into the process. And this is what we would call our third year design research studios, which are topic and our thesis studios. They're basically looking at a series of 4 categories. They're either in a technology category, which is artificial intelligence, digital property, design computation, fabrication, AR, VR, media, spatial environmental justice category, sustainability, ecology, social inequalities, typologies, meaning they're focused on healthcare, housing, urbanism, transportation, or infrastructure, or contemporary discourse, looking at cultural production, architectural history, architectural theory, disciplinary problems, and positions. And for those of you who are considering applying for the one-year Masters of Advanced Architectural Research Studies program, this is something that all of you are able to do. So those of you who are coming in from a 3-year program or the 2-year program can do the MARS as a certificate. So one of the issues that, one of the fundamental assets that we have at USC is the ability to do what we call graduate certificates. So graduate certificates are essentially being able to add a concentration or a minor by focusing your elective units into a particular topic. So the people who come into this MARS program can do this as a degree. Those who do the 2 or the 3-year sequence can also do the 2-year Masters of Architecture with a certificate in either city design and housing or performative design and technology. And so the first of these programs, city design and housing, was really focused on beginning to think about affordable housing, collective housing, cooperative housing, and thinking about how these things can challenge urban inequalities. The program has 3 topical trajectories: urban housing, looking at low-cost, collective, affordable, and informal housing. Urban inequalities, like we have racial segregation, economic disparities, gentrification, homelessness, etc. Urban infrastructures, street design, public transportation, walkability, public space, programmatic and zoning issues, etc. And the curriculum is focused in the 3 categories. There's courses that are focused on architecture and housing, where students explore the historical and theoretical perspectives in architecture and housing, sustainability and systems, looking at sustainable design, and urbanism and landscape, really beginning to think about the interplay between urbanism the landscape and the built environment. So you can see the course offerings for the Mars programs here. The fall programs, fall curriculum is on the left, the spring curriculum is on the right. One of the interesting things you'll notice is that on the bottom is our external electives. The external electives are all offered in the Price School of Public Policy. One of the unique features of being a graduate student at USC Architecture is that you're able to take electives at any of the other schools on campus, so long as you can, in writing, articulate why that elective aligns with your own architectural objectives. Which means you can take classes at the School of Cinema because you're interested in world building and how that relates to design. You can take classes in the School of Civil Engineering because you're interested in construction technology and how that relates to architecture. And in this particular instance, as part of the city design and housing concentration, you are pre-approved to take electives in the Price School of Public Policy that are focused on housing and community development, urban and international development, urban planning, etc. Meanwhile, the Masters of Advanced Architectural Research Studies is an opportunity for students who want to be more invested in design computation, parametric design, artificial intelligence, digital fabrication, data-driven design, and really beginning to think about how these things are aligning with advances in the AEC industry. And so one of the things that we're really focused on here with this particular program and the courses that are offered for our students that are taking these courses in the Masters of Architecture program is not only how these processes are innovative and novel, but also how they are actually being applied in real world settings towards the current practice of architecture. And so we have three topical themes in these courses: emerging design technologies, parametric modeling, design computation, digital fabrication, data-driven design, looking at environmental analysis, data visualization, data spatialization, and artificial intelligence, and performance-based design, looking at environmental performance, solar performance, thermal performance, material performance, etc. And that emerges in three different types of class categories. We have our design computation classes, our digital fabrication classes, and our integration and application classes. All of these then you can see here in this set of curricular offerings for the Mars PD&T program. Once again, all of these are also available to all of the students in the entire graduate architecture program. The easiest way to describe it is that the Masters of Architecture students have a core foundational broad architectural education with the ability to choose their elective offerings from our entire buffet, whereas the Mars students come in with a more focused degree that they can only choose from a limited number of electives. So in this case, the external electives that are offered here are actually in the Viterbi School of Engineering, in the Civil Engineering Department, looking at building information modeling, project visualization and simulation, or technology-enabled architecture, engineering, and construction. And so all of these are classes that are not only looking at how these techniques are looked at and used in architecture, it's also beginning to look at how these technologies are being applied in construction. And so all of the way these things get applied, whether it's in the topical areas of the Mars program or in the Masters of Architecture program, goes into our advanced research studios, starting with ARC 705. And all of these cover different topics, as I said before, ranging from, this was on the left is a project or studio I taught on super tall skyscrapers. In the middle was one called 5 Minute City that was looking at kind of 5-minute walkable urbanism. And on the right was a studio looking at desegregating a highly segregated community of Los Angeles known as the Oakwood community in Venice Beach, and looking at its historic legacy of African-American communities that were being displaced. This past year, some of our elective offerings for option studios are Cities and Cities Studio by Dora Chi, the Adaptive Pre-Use Studio by Julia Sulzer, and the Belonging and Identity Studio by Jose Harasti. All of these deal with more issues that are related towards the urban condition and cities and spatial justice. Then we have our more technology-oriented studios like MetaBuild by Sumin Han, which looks at generative design and advanced constructability. She's working a lot with AR technologies, looking at AR advanced fabrication processes. And the Rethinking Monolithic Architecture Studio led by Jiazhou Zhu, which is looking at working with Houdini and a lot of parametric modeling processes. And then we have another series of studios like The Money Train by Kevin Sherrod, which is looking at food deserts in South Los Angeles. Towards a sentient biomimetic architecture by Evelyn Tickle, which is looking at biomimetic systems for coral algae reefs. And then the Reconstruct and Render studio by Malcolm John Rio, which is looking at reconstructing the historical archives of Paul Revere Williams, the noted African-American architect, for a exhibition that he's curating at the Getty Center. And students are working with that archive and looking at archival processes and reviving the work of Paul Revere Williams through rendering techniques and animations. And then finally, we end with our thesis studios. Our thesis studios are the capstone projects for all four programs, and become the opportunities that the students self-propose projects. They start with a research seminar in the fall, which ends with a research studio in the spring. These are some of the projects from this past year. This is a project by Asma Al-Arafi, which was in Saudi Arabia, looking at kind of radiant cooling towers and their ability to be arrayed through computational processes. This was a project by Brandon Smith, looking at deconstructive architecture and formal geometries. This was a project by Alex Gautier, looking at the hidden stories in the alleys, the urban alleys of downtown Los Angeles, and looking at producing a kind of network of parasitic architectural interventions that attacked these neglected spaces. This is a project called From Footwear to Facades by Sean Rankin, who was a sneakerhead and basically positioned that facades were the equivalent of sneakers to an architectural form, and that he wanted to design a kind of facade system that would, like sneakers, be able to be interchanged so that the building could re-express itself. Project by Frankie Picard, looking at architecture as character. All right. And the project called Clothing Makes Character by Quinn Wilbert, where she looked at the kind of personalities that you could create by actually thinking of sartorial architecture, or architecture that is informed by textile manufacturing. This is a project by Amir Al-Arafi that looks at, it's called Practopia, and is looking at redevelopment processes for underserved communities in Los Angeles. And so as you can see, the thesis projects go all over the place, and they really, really delve into a wide range of things, but they become an opportunity for students to stake their own positions in architecture and produce things that become highly personal. There's a big emphasis on the program, in all of the programs, on architectural representation in terms of drawing. We have our ARC 517 visual studies courses, which are visual studies workshops. These are the three being offered this semester: Reconstructions and Projections by Brian DeLuna, Drawing Architecture by Blanca Catalan, and Super Chunks by Teddy Slovic. The school is very, very much invested in looking at making as a fundamental part of the process. So we are looking at physical models, prototypes, and iterative making as a kind of fundamental part of the design process. We're also heavily invested in technology and beginning to think about technology not as an advanced way of thinking, but actually as a fundamental way of thinking. So design, parametric design, design computation, Rhino modeling, grasshopper modeling, parametric modeling are all required courses. And then we also have advanced courses that are added on top of that. So these are some of the results of the courses that our students are taking. And then there's also a lot of things that we do outside of the classroom. And I think this is a really, really, really important part of the school, is the culture of the school. And I think one of the things that we really want to focus on a lot here is that architecture is a relational process, not a transactional act. So you're not just here to learn and extract from the school, you're also here to contribute to the school and be a part of its culture and be part of kind of growing and contributing to the kind of relationships that exist here at USC, not only with your fellow students and your classmates and your cohort, but also with your faculty, with the staff. And those relationships are things that will extend far beyond your time here at USC. Today, we just had our mentor breakfast, where every year we have our annual professional mentorship program, where we connect students with professional mentors from our USC Architectural Guild. We also have our annual blueprint exhibition. This is some of the work from last year that was at that exhibition. If you are admitted, I know all of you are now in the process of considering whether or not you're going to apply. If you apply and you are admitted, you will be invited to our annual blueprint exhibition and admitted students open house, which will be next spring in March. It's a great time to come visit the school, see the work of the school, get to know the culture of the school, see our facilities. But it's a really, really, really great exhibition and a really great showcase of the work that's happening here in the school. And one of the things that, you know, as I said before, your connection to the school doesn't just exist while you're here in the school. This is an example of some of the work that's being produced by our alumni. We hosted an event called Generation Next, where alumni who have gone on to have independent success come back and present the work that they've been doing. And as you can see here, independent success doesn't just mean going out and opening an architecture practice. It also means that they could be starting a production design company, a software design company, a furniture design company, graphic design, filmmaking, interaction design, community design, all sorts of ways that our students are engaging their own ideas of design in the professional world. And what's super interesting to me is when you think about those thesis projects that I was showing earlier, nearly every single one of these students that you're looking at here in terms of what their independent architectural success or design success meant, the seed of that was actually their thesis project. So that thesis project was the beginning of the way they began to think about what they were going to be doing in their next steps. We also have our annual graduate architecture spring break externship program. So every spring break, we place students with firms across the country, primarily in Los Angeles and the Southern California area. These are just some of the firms in the last 3 years that we've placed students with. In 3 years, we've placed 75 students in 81 externships with 53 different firms. There's 22 repeating firms and 5 firms that have done it every single year. Some of those externships have turned into summer internships, and some of them those summer internships have turned into full-time jobs. And so they're a really, really great way for students to get a chance not only to, you know, get their foot in the door, but also just get a chance to kind of do little free samples in a way at different architecture firms. So some of the students, Brian Lee, as an example, is a student who's now done it 3 years in a row. And every year he's decided to do a different type of firm. So the first year he did big corporate firm, then he did a small boutique fabrication outfit. And next he wants to try somebody that's non-architectural. The other thing that we have is our student organizations. And right now I'm only showing you 3, but these are the 3 that are probably the most prominent at the school. We have our space organization, which on the left, which is our student-run organization, a student publication, I should say. In the middle, we have GASA, which is the Graduate Architecture Student Association, which is kind of in the name. And then on the right, we have our NOMAS organization, which is our National Organization of Minority Architecture Students. Our NOMAS just won the Southern California Chapter of the Year, Student Chapter of the Year, and also was named our president, Eric Yu, was just named the Student Member of the Year. And then at a national level, our NOMAS chapter just placed third in the national design competition out of 49 architecture schools from around the country. So they're really big. All three of these organizations are a very big part of who we are here at USC. And if you're not already, I highly, highly recommend following us on Instagram, USC Grad Architecture. It's really a unique look into the culture of the school. We're trying to take a slightly different approach than other schools that kind of use it a little bit more as a portfolio of the school. We're using it a little bit more as a vlog or a visual diary of the school. And you'll get a chance to really kind of get a sense of not only what the work looks like, but the kind of culture of production, the culture of the students and what it's like to be here. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to my colleague Selwyn, who will give you a little bit of the curricular background.
Thank you, Alvin. Let me get my screen sharing going. Okay. Let's see if I can find it. All right. Can everyone see that slide? All right. So again, my name is Selwyn Ting. I'm the Associate Director of Graduate Architecture Program. And one of my roles is as curricular advisor to students. I do all sorts of things from transcript reviews of students' undergraduate work to course clearances, special course clearances, waivers, application of units to degrees. All of you, if you come here, can consider me as sort of a go-to person for any questions. If I don't know the answer, I can certainly point you in the right direction. But I hope to give you a little sense of what the program looks like from a curricular point of view. So as Alvin mentioned, there are basically 3 points of entry for a 3-year sequence. The 3-year program, the advanced standing, and the 1-year MARS post-professional degree for those that already have a professional degree, such as a B.Arch. As he mentioned, the curricula is integrated. So if we look at the 3-year sequence, it's a 102 unit sequence. It averages out to about 17 units per semester. There are waivable courses. So there are about 7 courses that students that have a pre-professional architecture degree usually take in their 4-year degree, and those are waivable. So those amount to about 22 units. As a kind of broad summary, 120 units total, average of 17 units per semester, and a minimum of 19 units of electives. So moving on to the 2-year, and basically the 2-year program takes the studios from the first year, those disappear, takes all those courses in red, those what we call basic requirements. Those disappear, and those also have to be waived. So we need to make sure you take those units. And so basically, we get rid of those approximately 34 units, and that leaves 64 units required in the sequence. So it is a 2-year, 4-semester sequence, averages about 16 units per semester. And with our tuition allowance of 15 to 18 units being all the same, you can expand those 16 units per semester for the same tuition you can actually take 8 additional units. So that can expand, especially with respect to electives. Some of you might be wondering, should I apply to a 2-year advanced standing or a 3-year degree? So if you do not have an architecture degree, or if you have a degree in a design field, but it's not architecture related, you would be applying to the 3-year program. So that does include other design related fields as well. If you have a 4-year pre-professional degree, you definitely apply to the 2-year. And that means also for international students, a 5-year B.Arch, you should be all set for the 2-year sequence. If you have a 4-year architecture degree, but you're not sure whether it qualifies, it's not letting me advance for some reason, apply to the 2-year degree. Applicants, there's like a checkbox in the application, but applicants will be assessed based on their portfolio. So we do look at the level of design that you've achieved in your undergraduate work. We'll look at undergraduate coursework and the alignment of undergraduate courses with the professional degree sequence, the accredited professional degree sequence. And usually the impediment to taking the 2-year degree might be you don't have enough of those basic requirements to even graduate in 2 years. If you have to like add all those red courses that I showed earlier, you might not be able to, and take electives. So the electives, I think, are an important part of the sequence. And Alvin went through the Mars curriculum. I'll just kind of flash through them here, but it's a 42-unit sequence. And again, it's a little more constrained in terms of course availability. But I think the key thing is I work with students to design their own plan. So based on your interests and based upon your undergraduate degree and what you need to take, I'm here to help students achieve their aspirations within our program. Part of that certainly is the electives. And, you know, as a school with around 700 students, we do have some critical mass to offer electives. If you look at all our course offerings, and this is actually from last year, because I can, you know, where you can get a full snapshot, we had about 180 courses offered undergrad and grad. For graduate courses, there were about 97 available to graduates courses to students. But if you take out some of the core required courses, that leaves about 79 electives available per year, which is quite a few. Continuing with kind of the electives by numbers theme, if you kind of look at where different electives may focus, you know, we had 10 computation electives, 20 technology innovation electives, 11 spatial justice electives. I did highlight in orange some of the courses, the required courses that include the topic in orange. So those are there as well. Housing, 9 electives, city design, 16, theory, 14, representation and visualization, 14, but some of them, like the 517, offered up to kind of 6 different sections. So it's actually more than 14. for this topic. Sustainability, 14. Landscape architecture, 16. Heritage conservation, 13. And we also have special topics. These are courses that are usually offered only once or twice. They are relevant to the period of time that they're offered, and they're just meant to be transient. So they come and they go, and they're constantly circulating. So there are courses like $5.99. You might find 8 listings under $5.99's special topics. We also have $5.90 directed research. So say you cannot find an elective that you like, but you know of a faculty who's interested, and you have a certain interest that aligns, you can create your own elective. It's usually limited to about 2 units, but you can basically create your own elective course, and it's independent research under the guidance of faculty. So that really opens up some possibilities as well. With respect to the campus, of course, the USC campus is super rich and active. There's always lectures going on. There's always something of interest. At Watt Hall and Harris Hall, which is home to the School of Architecture, we're kind of at the southern border. But I think what's most important, especially as you go into your thesis years, your kind of third or final year, we're interested in what you can do with architecture, or to put it another way, what architecture can do, or what architecture can be. And much of that is through the intersection of things that aren't thought of as traditionally architecture. So whether it's film or engineering, or even something like journalism, right? You can find and create new paths to explore in architecture. Right next to the School of Architecture is the Viterbi School of Engineering. There's the oh, sorry, my Siri is trying to talk to me. There is the Iovine Young Academy. The Young in Iovine Young is Andre Young of Dr. Dre fame. And this school focuses on arts, technology, and innovation. And they also have a master's in integrated design and technology. But it's, of course, a very different focus than ours. Marshall School of Business, where you can expand upon entrepreneurship or a business related to the architectural, practice. The Price School of Public Policy is also a very common school to take external units in. Urban design, policy and planning, and so also right adjacent to the School of Social Sciences, where you can take a deeper dive into spatial justice issues. The School of Cinematic Arts, like courses as Alvin mentioned, in world building, but also visualization and animation theory and criticism in cinema and designed environments. I just noted kind of a few points where the school can kind of expand and reach out into kind of lateral possibilities. But there are others as well, whether it's spatial sciences, GIS, neurosciences, a school of gerontology for things like healthcare, a school of medicine. There's so many opportunities. And of course, all of those opportunities have the city of Los Angeles as a laboratory. Super rich environment. Just to the south, you can see the stadium where the Trojans play their football games, but the Museum of Natural History, California Science Center, the Museum of Narrative Arts, which is under construction. It's actually a super rich and vital city in which to explore your ideas. Within our school, we have 4 different graduate degrees. Master of Landscape Architecture, Master of Heritage Conservation, Master of Building Science, and of course, Architecture. So those kind of form sort of the 4 corners of the graduate programs. And so they also offer opportunities to get certificates. So I know Alvin mentioned some, but just to kind of give you a broader picture, we do have certificates in building science, sustainable design, facade art, science and technology, landscape architecture, heritage conservation, performance design and technology, and city design and housing. Those last 2 I mentioned are, of course, related to the Mars programs. They're typically 12 or 14 units that really come from your electives. And so it's basically curating your electives to find a certain focus. And then outside the School of Architecture, some pre-approved certificates are in sustainable cities and and real estate development. So those are all pre-approved to apply to the M.Arch degree in particular. And that was my kind of tour of the curriculum. And actually, I believe this slide is premature because I'm going to hand you off to Justin, who will talk a little bit about applying.
Yeah, thank you so much, Selwyn. Thanks everybody for coming out. My name is Justin Stadel. I am the Assistant Director of Admissions for the School of Architecture, and I work specifically with graduate students. So if you've started an application at USC, then I've probably already reached out to you, or I will reach out to you. So just be assured that if you have any questions, you can always contact me. Oftentimes when people start filling out their application, that's when the questions start coming in. So I will be available oftentimes through email, but you can also reach out to me and schedule a phone conversation or a video call. Or a tour. So let me share my screen. All right, can everybody see this? Yep. Okay, great. All right, so this is the outside of the School of Architecture. This is Watt Hall. If you haven't visited USC, I recommend you visit. If you can, if you're in the area, definitely come and visit. It's a great university just to kind of tour around the whole university, but also the facilities. So if you get a chance, feel free to reach out and schedule a tour. As Selwyn went over, these are the School of Architecture graduate degrees. We also have some dual degrees and graduate certificates. If you're interested in, say, a graduate certificate, we do have other information sessions happening throughout this week. So please come to those information sessions because they'll give you a little background about some of the other programs at USC, like the building science and heritage conservation. So when you're doing your application, there's 2 parts to it when you're applying to USC for a portfolio-based application. The first part is your CAS application. That's your standard application. That's broken up into 4 quadrants with like personal information and transcripts and additional attachments. The fourth quadrant is your slide room application. And the slide room application part is where you submit your portfolio. You submit your statement of intent or personal statement, your resume. Students who are international will be actually submitting your TOEFL or IELTS scores independently. So through those organizations, you'll send those in. But then also through that slide room portion, you'll be submitting your 3 letters of recommendation. One thing that we've added this year is that you'll be submitting a video, about 30 seconds to 60 seconds video kind of presentation or description of a project that you've done or one of your interests. It's a way to kind of humanize your both your portfolio and your application. So that's an addition this year. You can find all these application requirements on a link that I'll put in the chat a little bit later on. I'll put a number of links in the chat so that during the Q&A you can refer to them or copy paste them. All right, so official transcripts. So the copies of your official transcripts, there's a few ways of going about this. The easiest way of going about it is to scan or turn a picture PDF into the CAS app directly. So you'd upload it directly from, say, a copy that you have yourself. So it would have to be an official transcript. It can't be, say, a student portal of your transcripts or something, any unofficial transcripts. It would have to be a copy of your official transcripts. The other way of doing it would be to mail in your transcripts directly from the registrar's office of your previous schools. Or the other way is to do it digitally through, say, Parchment or Clearinghouse, National Clearinghouse. We will need all of your transcripts from all of the colleges or universities that you attended. So not just your graduating university, but all of them. We need to see your full academic higher education history. For international students, we'll need to see, well, you will be required to submit possibly additional items depending on what country you're applying from. There is a link right here. I'll drop it in the chat that shows you, it's kind of like a search for the country you're applying from, and it'll show you exactly what we need for you to apply to the school. Letters of recommendation. So for your letters of recommendation, we require 3 and we accept up to 5. Those letters of recommendation should be from either academic sources or professional sources. So either or, you know, if you're fresh out of school, maybe you're looking more towards your academic colleagues and references. But if you've been in a professional situation for a while, you may be looking for professional references. These letters of recommendation, again, are coming in through your slide room application. If you have other applications that you're submitting to USC that are not portfolio based, you'll be submitting those through the CAS app, the main application. I get a lot of questions from students who are doing both, submitting a portfolio for one application and not a portfolio for another. Just know that if you're applying to the MARC or the MARS program, you're going to be submitting your letters of recommendation through the slide room portfolio. And scholarships. So our scholarships are merit-based. They're based on your full application, which includes your portfolio, includes your letters of recommendation, your transcripts. The faculty look at the full application. Other forms of scholarship are available through other means, through Scholarship Universe. So once you apply to the the school, you'll be given a code, and then you can look at Scholarship Universe. I'll put that in the chat, and that will connect you to other outside scholarships outside of the school that are available for students. It's a great way to kind of research different scholarships available. You may be interested in outside scholarships as well, but that's only available after you apply and you have a student ID code. Deadline. So priority deadline is January 3rd. That means that when you submit your application, we also need all of your recommenders to have submitted their letters of recommendation in by that time. If you don't hit the priority deadline, that's fine. We continue to do rolling applications as space permits afterwards until May 1st for international applicants and July 1st for domestic applicants. So keep that in mind that when you apply, we will need, again, not just your application, but your recommenders to submit their portion as well. Here are some resources. I'm going to put a lot of these in the chat as well. Some people are looking for application fee waivers. The School of Architecture does not hand out application fee waivers through the school. It's handled at the university level. So I'll put in the chat a link to the application waiver form where you can fill that out and see if you qualify for an application fee waiver. Again, my name is Justin Stottle. You can reach me at stottle@usc.edu. I will include other contact information in the chat as well. And that's about it. Thank you.
All right, so we'll now, thanks, Justin. We'll now go ahead and open up the forum for conversation and questions, which it seems like there's already been quite a few of them in the chat. And so I think maybe I'll go ahead and expand on my answer to Ashley's question. I think that's probably the number one question that most everybody's going to have repeatedly is like, how can I get a scholarship? So the scholarships, the merit scholarships are available purely on a merit basis. So based off of the strength of your application materials relative to your cohort that you're applying with. Right. And so basically what happens is that 3 faculty will review every application. Every application will get a score from all 3 faculty members. Then I will be the kind of one person that reviews all the applications and gives everybody a final score. All of those scores are averaged and ranked. There's a certain cutoff point where we stop. Basically above a certain score would be people to admit. Then there's from there a series of tiers which are varied into different tiers of scholarship levels. And everybody who is admitted into the program is competing for those spots. So you don't need to apply separately for the merit scholarships. In addition to that, if you look at the USC Scholarship Universe, which you won't be able to access until you've been admitted, the USC Scholarship Universe is a bit like a matchmaking or dating tool, but for scholarships. So you basically fill out your profile, your identity, whether you're female, whether you are first generation, whether you're of a certain ethnicity, et cetera, and it will filter the available scholarships that you qualify for. And then you can apply to those additional scholarships independently, but those are outside of the School of Architecture. Some of them are within USC, but not directly from the School of Architecture. Others might be outside of USC, but irregardless, you'd have to apply to those separately. But I will also say there are additional scholarships once you are in USC and at the School of Architecture that we offer annually for our returning students that are, again, competitive. Some of them do consider merit, some of them do consider need, but those are all for returning students because they're based off of your performance at USC rather than what you apply with. Does anybody have any other questions? Is anybody who hasn't had a question answered yet in the chat want to ask it live? Don't be shy.
There's a couple questions about iPal. If you could go into more depth about that.
I'm just gonna throw this out there for the people that are shy right now. Us remembering your face or knowing your name does go a long way. So just throwing that out.
Perhaps I could talk a bit to iPal. I didn't see the question, so I hope I can hit the right points. We were one of the original 11 schools in the nation to have the iPal pilot program. I believe now there are 4 schools on the West Coast that have it. Maybe there's more that I'm not aware of. But iPal at USC, it is at the very least something that you sign up for through NCARB, and you pay a certain NCARB registration fee. And as a student of in the USC first professional program, you can start taking exams like the day you register. I don't recommend it, but you could. There is a recommended sequence. We have a roadmap to licensure upon degree completion, but it doesn't quite work with all the experience hours that you would need. So the huge plus is rather than graduating, waiting about 2 years to earn your experience hours and then taking the exams, you get to take the exams while you're still in an academic context. And you could take advantage of USC's NOTLY, which stands for not licensed yet, courses that basically tutor specifically to the exam. I hope I answered the question. How about Kunal? Did you, I hope I said that right, Kunal Mehta?
Yeah. Hi, nice to meet you. Thank you for having us. I just had the follow-up question about iPal. On the website, I thought I saw that we can like work during the school year to make up the hours. Do you help us with that? And then do you recommend us working during the school year, or is that just only during the summer? And thank you again.
Sure. Good question. We do recommend that you do not work any significant hours during the semesters, the regular semesters. Architecture school is a very committed effort. You're learning a lot. The learning curve is super steep. And you're learning software, you're learning design, you're learning basically a new language. So we do recommend that internships occur during the summer. And we do have that externship program, but we also have, through the Architectural Guild, they have this huge job fair where like 70 firms come to our campus and basically are trying to sell themselves to our students. So it's quite a quite an affair. It happens every spring in March, and we get a great attendance from firms interested in USC students. Okay. Janice.
Hello. Yes, it's Janice. So I did a quick scroll through the Instagram page, and it does seem that the school has a very strong emphasis in integrating technology into architecture. So that just makes me wonder, and I hope it's okay to ask. I was wondering, when the school is reviewing non-background applicants' portfolio, what are some of the things that they're looking for compared to when they're reviewing students that already have architecture background?
Yeah, so I'll let Alvin answer this. I heard him.
Yeah. Sorry, someone. So I will say what we're looking for is demonstration of creative intelligence, demonstrations of dedication to craft. And the third thing I would say is probably the hardest thing, like hardest thing to describe, but is an eye, right? And a sort of sensibility. And that sensibility can be demonstrated whether it's in graphic design, whether it's in photography, whether it's in any sort of creative act, but you can kind of get a sense of somebody's eye for things. But I think generally speaking, what we're looking for is demonstrations of creative ability that also indicate an ability to care about the work that you're doing.
I see.
Uh,
Okay, thank
and I also think that another thing that I highly recommend for all people in the portfolio is an ability to curate. And you know, I think I do know that there's other schools that have a different approach to this where they might want to see everything. I think we would prefer to see a more curated approach, and your ability to choose what you think should be included and not included and explain why. And so I think, you know, captioning is an important part of this, which is that you can actually explain the content in your video or in your material. And that's also why we require the video. The video submission is the part where you will get a chance to verbally express why you want to talk about something. And I think that's an important part of what we do as architects, is not only the act of doing what we do, but the act of convincing other people about why we did what we did. And so I think that's one of the fundamental things that we want to make sure that the people that come into the program may not necessarily have those things at the beginning, but they at least are able to show an awareness of being able to begin to articulate those types of things.
And
Okay,
Janice, I would
thank you.
add that don't worry. Everyone applying to the 3-year program is roughly in the same boat. We get applicants from all sorts of backgrounds. So just be willing to show your curiosity, be able to explain what you're exploring. So when we see work, we might not see what you see, and it is useful through just say a caption under an image to tell us what you are exploring and or what you see in that work that gives it value.
I see. Sorry, just one quick follow-up question. So in the requirements, it does say that it's Bachelor of Arts or Science or any equivalent, but I have a BMUS, which is music, Bachelor's of Music. So I don't know if that's the same thing as Bachelor of Arts, because I think some schools are seeing this differently.
I'm actually not familiar with that degree, but it's a 4-year undergraduate degree resulting in a bachelor's that you should be, excuse me, qualified for the
Applying.
program. Yeah,
I see. Okay, thank you so much.
sure.
Also, I just want to jump in that a little bit later, probably in November, we'll have a portfolio overview. So stay tuned for that. That will be a chance for you to kind of get into more details about what to include in your portfolio. I know that a lot of students, this is the major part of what they are thinking about based on the questions I get directly from students who are applying. And so I just want to put that out there. We'll be contacting you later on to let you know the details, but it'll happen sometime in mid to late November.
Thank you.
Take a question from Kayla.
Hi. Does the MArch program include abroad studios?
Yes, so it's a great question. We do have study abroad options. All of our study abroad options. So there are 2 types of study abroad courses that are available. The first is what's called a ARC 580 Field Studies course, which is a 4-unit, 2-week travel course. That would take place as a Maymester, meaning you would actually pay for it with your spring tuition, but the class would take place the first 2 weeks immediately after the spring semester is over. And what that does is it does 2 things. It allows you to, one, carry a big heavier load during the semester in your actual tuition, but not feel like you're carrying a heavier load, and not have to pay additional summer tuition to take that travel course. because it's part of the spring. And then if you choose to, we also offer an ARC 705, which is a summer travel studio, which is a 6-week travel course. The travel options we have right now available are Paris, Tokyo, and the American Southwest are the 3 destinations that we currently offer. So the Paris trip starts in Paris, but also goes to Amsterdam and Belgium. And then the Tokyo one starts in Tokyo, but does an entire tour of Japan, basically nonstop. All of those have 2 versions of it. One, which is you can do the 2-week field studies without the studio, or you could do the studio without the field studies, or you could do both. But the summer studio does cost additional summer tuition. Although that summer tuition will count towards your degree, which then allows you to take fewer units during your normal term.
Okay, thank you.
Additionally, we do also offer a number of graduate travel fellowships. And so these fellowships are competitive. They're offered every year. They're research fellowships. I believe there's 4 offered per year. Students need to propose a research proposal, a budget, a schedule, and a series of deliverables. And then they're interviewed. It's a competitive process, and then students are selected and then go off to do their research wherever. One of the most recent ones I can think of is County Merriman, who did a trip to Singapore to study the garden cities of Singapore and was very interested in the intersection between the architecture and landscape.
I'm getting some questions. I'm going to try to knock out as many hands as possible that are raised. There are quite a few hands raised. I've got a number of questions in the chat for the physics requirement. I just want to say that it's a physics or a math requirement. And that requirement is calculus for math or an embedded math in your physics, and that math would be pre-calc at least embedded in the physics. That's not required to apply, but that is a requirement once you're admitted. So you would need to, in a sense, have taken that class by the time you enroll in the fall term. So again, it's not an admission requirement, but it's a requirement. You should think of it as an admission requirement in the sense that you will need to have taken that class by the time you enroll in fall of 2025. So either or, right? The math calculus or the embedded physics with math.
And I could probably add to that response. It can be taken as an online course or even a community college course. It simply needs a syllabus and some documentation, such as a transcript or other documentation to verify that you've taken the course. In terms of what to take, I do recommend physics courses that address things like Newtonian physics rather than, let's say, electromagnetic and electrical physics. Those are just more useful to architecture, and they'll have direct application to, say, structures courses. Calculus, I would say the physics course is actually more useful. You'll be using those tools that you learned in physics right away in structures, more so than calculus. All right.
I got a question about the timeline. So if you apply by January 3rd, by the priority date, you will receive an admission notification in late February, early March. If you apply after that priority date, then it gets pushed back. It's on a rolling basis after that. So keep that in mind.
Okay, with respect to raise hands, I hope I'm responding in order. Pang Shen.
Oh, yes. Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Alvin. Thank you, Selwyn, and thank you, Justin, for the presentation. And much appreciated for your help so far. And wondering regarding about the 2-year MArch program. It's possible to maybe take the 68, if my math is correct, the 68 units required for the 2-year MArch in 3 years, so that there's more time for extracurricular activities and maybe part-time working during the semesters.
Um, Thank you for that question. Generally, we limit the sequence to a 2-year sequence. Now, there are special circumstances or special, say, interests that we would be willing to work with the students to make it happen. We do find a tremendous benefit for moving through with a cohort. So much of the School of Architecture is building relationships and friendships, and going through a sequence. Sometimes we tweak the sequence from year to year, and these pauses can kind of mess up your particular sequence. So we admit everyone expecting a 2-year completion period. Once they're here, if there are special circumstances, we will work with you.
Okay, sounds good. And also regarding about the priority admission versus the regular admission cycles. So would there be maybe a larger financial aid, or not financial aid, a scholarship pool for applying the priority rounds, or will be the equal consideration for the scholarships?
I would, Alvin or Justin, correct me if I'm wrong. We generally review the priorities first. And if we admit enough students in the priority batch, then we dip into everyone else at a later time on an as-needed basis. And that also would go for the merit scholarships as well. So the priority does get priority for both admission and merit scholarship. Non-priority is kind of the leftovers, if you will.
Okay.
Did I kind of describe that correctly, Justin? Or
Yeah, I just want to say that, yeah, please, if you are listening to this now, if you're here now, obviously, try to get your application in by January 3rd. If you're listening to this maybe later on after the January 3rd date, please be sure you can check back in with us to see if we've closed the application pool. But if you see the application open, then we're still at least reviewing applications. So please get your application in as soon as you can.
that's a really good point. Thank you.
I see. And also a follow-up question in terms of admission. Do you tend to kind of fix the amount of people in each class, or should 1 year suddenly receive a large amount of applications, consider maybe adding another 25% or 15% of the class for another studio in the same year?
For this admission year, we are not looking at any expansion. But as Justin mentioned, as long as applications are open, I would try. It's a very kind of indeterminate landscape when it comes to admitting students in terms of conversion rates, how many students end up coming that have been admitted versus and compared to how many actually show up. So there's a constant dynamic going, and so it's hard to give in any 1 year kind of a set percentage or average.
Understood. Yeah. Thank you so much. Much appreciated for your help. And I'll follow up with email if I have more questions.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
How about Blake Arundel? Excuse me.
Hi. I was wondering if if you've applied in the past to USC, whether or not that has really impact on the admissions process, whether positive or negative.
Each application is considered on its own when we receive it. And let's say there are people that are, some people will have a note on their application because it's been a deferred application, so it's been passed through the system once before and still reconsidered. But every time the application is considered, it's not only considered by itself, it's considered within the context of the pool within which it's being considered. So it doesn't hurt or help. I guess it really depends on I hate to put it this way, but in the eye of the beholder, right? Because the 3 reviewers that are assigned to it, sometimes it might be someone who remembers it. Other times it is somebody who's never seen it before, right? So the scoring is not dictated by how it was scored previously. There's no record of it that tracks it, unless it was a deferred application.
Okay, thank you.
How about Anna?
Hi, thank you so much for taking the time this evening for all this information. I had a quick question just about all of the different organizations or like partnerships that you work with. I think one of the most interesting things that got me looking into USC is your collaboration with the Gamble House. Just looking at historical preservation is something I'm really interested in, especially in a residential context. Are there any similar programs that you guys like to have with that, or is there any future expansion for that? Because I think that's one of the most interesting things that you guys bring to graduate admissions in general.
Thanks for the question. So unfortunately, we no longer are connected to the Gamble House. We have basically the Gamble House has been released from our purview. We're no longer connected to it. We do have our heritage conservation program, which is still a very strong program at the school and a strong presence. You can get a certificate in heritage conservation while you're at the school doing your master's of architecture. We are also in the process of working a dual MHC M.Arch degree, so that you could actually do both degrees together. And then we are also partnership right now is the primary, let's say, heritage partnership we have right now with the Getty Center and the Paul Revere Williams Archive, looking at the archive of Paul Revere Williams, the late African-American architect. But there currently is no other historic home which we have there is, sorry, I forgot there's one. It's the Neutra, one of the Neutra residences. So it is an unofficial partnership. But every year, basically, I forgot the name of the residence. Dion Neutra is the guy that we work with one of Richard Neutra's sons. And I forgot the name of the residence, but it's in Silver Lake. And every year they choose one of our students to be a docent and a resident at the house. So basically, one of our students gets to live there for free, live in a historic mid-century modern masterpiece, and be the groundskeeper for that building.
Also, I want to jump in and say that you're right in the sense that the Heritage Conservation program is the only program on the West Coast. So it is unique in that sense. And as Alvin was saying, there's a formal relationship with the Neutra House. But if you talk to the directors of the program or the students who are graduate students in the program, they've got their hands in the city. I mean, they're using LA as a laboratory, and they're building connections. And so it's a really good cohort of students and faculty that you can dip into to learn more about the area, and then also national and global kind of implications of that.
Yeah, thank you. I think one of the most important things for me is just getting hands-on experience, especially because you're so close to metropolitan area. So that's super helpful. Thank you so much.
I just uploaded the PDF from last year's fall for your Union House residency.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Alvin, is the Gamble House residency still happening for?
It is still happening, but we no longer own the house.
Right, right. So there are opportunities similar to the Neutra House
Yep.
that have been taken advantage by USC students, actually a lot of USC students. And each year they select 2 people to live in the Gamble House for a year, which is quite an experience.
Yeah, I think that's the program that I was mentioning. I know that the collaboration had ended, but if that's still going, that's really interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Ronald or Dalton.
Yeah, how you doing? Thank you all for the presentation. Really appreciate it. I had a quick question just in terms of that minimum of 3 recommendations versus maximum of 5. Is there anything that would inform like an applicant in doing more than the minimum of 3? Like, is there, I don't know, a preference, or is there a specific reason why someone would include over 3?
I think that's really dependent on, sometimes you just have people in your life or in your like that are impactful, that can really speak for you and on your behalf. But really, I think the primary emphasis is on academic recommendations. So we do care if you're a good person, but that's not what we're being admitted for. So like what we're looking for is somebody who can vouch for you as an academic, as a student, as a designer, as a creative, and can really kind of you know, tell us a little bit more about you that isn't regurgitating what is on your CV or what is in your portfolio or in your personal statement. Somebody else being able to identify how they can see your path to future success.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jennifer.
Hi, thank you for this session. I just have a quick question. I was wondering what elements can help an application stand out, be it in the portfolio or reference letters or something else.
So I get asked this question all the time. And I would say, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told my daughter when my daughter applied for private high school last year. And when she was filling out the applications, I told her this, and it's what I tell everybody else. And it's, don't fill out the application telling us what you think you want us to hear. Take your time to really sit down, reflect, and think about who you are, what you want, why you're doing it, and be honest about it. And tell us who you really are. And if that works, great. If it didn't, then it was the wrong fit. Meaning,
Okay.
it's a very, like, what we're looking is for the genuine you and for whether or not that genuine you fits and aligns with the genuine USC. So my biggest recommendation, and this is not just for USC, is to look at all the schools that you're applying to, look at their faculty, look at, like, really understand them as a program and who they are and the people that are there, and be able to identify who you want to work with. Like, why are you, like you're not just going to, as I said before, the degree is not a transaction, it's a relationship.
Right.
So if you want that relationship, who do you want it with and why? Right? Like, who on that faculty do you see yourself saying, I want to take a class with this person.
That's great advice.
I want to be a part of this person's research.
And one more question, please. I was wondering what kind of projects you're looking for in a portfolio, especially for the 2-year program.
I think there is no specific like projects we're looking for. Again, I think it's demonstrations of creative intelligence, demonstration craft, dedication to craft, skill. Like for in a 2-year portfolio, then we are beginning to look at a lot of skill, right? Like can they draw? Can they model? Can they understand how to critically diagram and put things together? Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good night.
For now. Piercy.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for that presentation again. I was just curious if someone has their B.Arch, but they're maybe not interested in all the electives in the Mars program. Like, is it possible to do the 2-year, or is it always recommended to do the Mars program if you have a B.Arch?
It's absolutely possible to do the 2-year, and the 2-year allows you to pick and choose. Or so. I think there will probably be some redundancy in the 2-year, but your B.Arch would allow you to waive a lot of that redundancy.
All right, great.
And open up a lot of electives for you.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I would add, you will have to go through the full studios sequence, the 2-year studio sequence. So the the studios may be maybe the most redundant part. But you will likely have lots of opportunities for electives. We do have quite a few required advanced courses that are part of the sequence. So recommend you kind of take a look at that and see if it fits the bill.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm currently a second year in undergrad. I'm getting my Bachelor of Science in Architecture. I was wondering if you had any like skills that you recommend strengthening to prepare for the application.
I think drawing and representation skills are really, really, really critical and important. I think being able to have a critical approach to architecture, meaning, let's say, I think one of the things that is important for us, and me in particular, is the idea of architecture, as I said, with a capital A and not building with a lowercase b. So I think, the technical kind of requirements and the kind of professional requirements are important, but they aren't the thing that we are assessing. I would say really what we're trying to assess is that we can have a critical approach to design that explores ideas, concepts, and expressions of value that go beyond just, let's say, utility.
Thank you.
Welcome. Get a head start here. Second year. Lily.
Hi, thank you so much for such an informative session. I actually have 2 questions, and my first one is about a follow-up about the letters of recommendation. So it's been about 8 years since I graduated, and would that still mean that the academic letters of recommendation still carry more weight? So should I still try and get my recommendation letters from, my university professors, or?
That's a great question. In your instance, I would say it's a judgment call on your end, right? Because at that point, like, the academic career was 8 years ago. Obviously, those people, if you've maintained contact with them and you still have a relationship with them, I think it's useful. It's also not useful if all they're going to write is, yes, they were my student.
Right.
Like and I think that goes for all of you, right? So like if you're getting an academic reference and the best you can get out of that reference is, they were my student, then that's, not enough of a reference. That we really want somebody that can, say something about you that contributes to our understanding of who you are.
Understood. Thank you so much. And my next question is about the dual degree. I was wondering if there's any possibility where you can pursue a dual degree in MArch and MRED. I know that it's not formally offered, but provided obviously I get accepted to both, could that be a possibility? I know that you do offer the certificate in real estate development, but is that an option, or is it not really?
At the current moment, it is not a true option, I would say, but the option would be more is to dovetail the two in a way, in terms of doing them back to back and trying to get some of, and this, maybe someone can answer this one better. Like I would think that there would be an ability for you to kind of double dip in a way. It was like doing the two back to back, but you're kind of making progress towards one by using your electives towards it.
Okay, right. Understood.
Yeah, so to address that, I believe the university allows 25% of the units to overlap as applied to two separate degrees. There will be two separate entry points as well, because it's not a dual degree program with a single application. It will be two separate applications. And the application could also occur, let's say you start the MArch, you could apply to the program afterwards, after you're already admitted. And it may or may not be looked at favorably that you're already a graduate student at USC applying to another program. So.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Sure.
Jamie.
Hi, yeah, good evening. As mentioned previously regarding the amount of 3D building we'll be working on in the first couple of years, what is the studio culture like? How do we collaborate as students, and kind of what resources are available to support the studio work?
It's a great question. So studio culture is super important here at USC. We are, I mean, as with all architecture schools are unique in the university setting, in the sense that we're the only schools in the entire campus that give students permanent real estate. So every student not only has classrooms, but then they also have their own studio spaces and their own permanent desks. At those locations within the studios, we have plotters, printers, laser cutters, 3D printers. All printing and plotting is free of charge. So students are able to print and plot as required. 3D printing, there are a number of free 3D printers that are available through the studio setting, but you have to supply your own filaments, but they are shared amongst all of the studios. So those that really are interested in the 3D printing tend to buy their own 3D printers just to not have to share and not have to deal with maintaining somebody else's mess. And then there's also a series of digital fabrication and normal workshops in terms of full woodworking workshop. There's a 6-axis Coupa robotic arm. There is CNC milling machines. There are a number of making machines. And then within the studio spaces, there are, it's basically, the students are, kind of essentially moving in. Making use of those spaces. And it is something that you cannot enforce that students work in the studios. And I will say, I'll be very honest in saying that since COVID, our studio culture has taken a bit of a hit. Since we've come back from COVID, it's not the same as it was pre-COVID. It has gotten a lot better every year, like every year it gets successively better. But I think one of the things that I always encourage students is that by being in the studio environment, you are essentially being able to learn by osmosis, right? So that you're not only being able to kind of sit there and do your own work, you're actually sitting around other people doing their work, and there's the collective energy and the collective knowledge. Not only in terms of what people are doing, but what they're sharing and they're not sharing. You're being inspired by the things you see. You're also being warned by the things you see. So I think that's something that we really encourage.
I also want to jump in there and say that if you do come visit for a tour or something, you may want to schedule it on Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the afternoon, because that's when students are in studio, and you'll see kind of the kind of beehive activity in the studios as it's going on. So I encourage you, if you have the chance to come and visit, schedule a tour for like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That would be the best time to come.
And just to add to the idea of studio culture, all the first 2 years, the core studios, they all share one huge space, and they usually work on the same projects with different faculty running their own studio sections, usually about 12 students. While most of the work is independent, we really want students to be able to think for themselves and generate architecture using their own values. The coordinators usually orchestrate some series of group exercises or group works. It might be research, it might be building context or research in context. And that allows students to really work together. And there's also field trips. So this year, the first year students, they're all going to New York en masse, and it's going to be, I think, quite an experience. And that's very purposeful, not only to get a firsthand knowledge of architecture through visiting, and doing so in an academic environment or academic atmosphere, but also it's just a great team building opportunity.
Awesome, thank you.
Sure. Nguyen? Oh, I don't hear you. No. Oh, no. I'm sorry, I don't hear you. Did you want, oh, I see, you have something in the chat. Given the diversity of creative pursuits within the USC thesis, I'm curious about your thoughts on showcasing external creative interests alongside architecture-focused work. Would you recommend dedicating a portion of the portfolio to these outside creative interests, etc.? Yes, we are interested.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, you know, I think architecture as an expanding field, much of that expansion occurs with these intersections with other disciplines, other media and modalities of exploration. So, yes.
I would also go on to say that one of the things I constantly argue for is that architecture is the last remaining applied liberal arts degree, meaning that you come into architecture and you're not just studying architecture, you're studying political science, you're studying history, you're studying economy, you're studying engineering, you're studying global politics, you're studying all of these things, learning how to formulate an argument, learning how to justify it through supportive documentation, learning how to design a presentation, meet a deadline, and convince somebody about your ideas. And that is applicable to almost any creative discipline.
I think we have one more raised hand. That's Anthony Martinez.
Actually, there's two, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, and one more. Okay, go ahead, Anthony.
How you doing? My name's Anthony. I just had a question about with USC being in a state with prominent Mexican culture or immigrant culture. Do you guys have any sort of courses that focus on that or highlight that heritage? I heard you mention heritage and said names like Paul River Williams. But just wondering if you have anything with the immigrant culture or Mexican background course.
Yeah, so one of the courses that I showed in the previous slideshow was a course by Jose Harasti, and it's a design studio that is focused on designing narratives around the city of Boyle Heights and looking at the undocumented immigrant population in Boyle Heights and looking at the narratives that surround them and their kind of resistance of gentrification and the ongoing struggles of that community. We also have a number of, we currently in the undergrad have a study abroad program in Mexico City, which we're in the process of working on developing for the grad program. And then Marcos Sanchez, one of our faculty, also teaches a studio that looks at what he calls infrastructural urbanism and looks at the kind of tracing of movements between rail networks between Mexico City and the US and further south into other parts of Latin America, and students that design kind of urban strategies for supporting those communities.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And then Sierra.
Hi, I have a quick question because you mentioned that your first years are going to New York. I have a question about if you have like any scholarships that help and aid with students who like to travel but don't have the necessary funds to do so.
Yes, so what we do on those field trips is that there are funds that are available for students that need support on those. And those are not, those are done separately. Like it's not we don't try, like, basically it's a sort of need-based thing that is not done, you know, in a public forum, so it's not something that we announce. But it's done more in private conversations. And then we also have, as I said before, our graduate research travel fellowships, and those are more competitive based rather than need based, and those are to support individual research.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions here?
Yeah.
I really apologize. I know the meeting is going for a while, but I have one last question. If you recommend any program that we could prepare ourselves for going to the master program. I noticed that a lot of work probably require grasshoppers and programs that's a lot more advanced than the bachelor that we had. So would you recommend us, taking some time this summer and kind of get a head start on that, or would there be a course focusing and helping us getting through that sort of complex and advanced programs?
Sorry, I will admit I was just reading something in the chat and I missed your question.
Oh, that's that's okay.
I could address that. So, in terms of software, in terms of what might be useful before, I would say for any MArch program that you apply to, having some familiarity with software is a huge plus. So we really focus on the use of Rhino and transitioning into Grasshopper as well. When you start Studio, it's kind of a two-front battle. You're learning software and wrestling that, but you're also wrestling with design ideas and concepts. So the more fluency you gain with software, the easier the transition into the studio will be.
I would say the easiest way to describe it would be vocabulary, right? And so like your ability to have a larger vocabulary in terms of a formal vocabulary, in terms of what you can express in form, allows you to be more articulate in what you can say with form. And so the mastery of that software is directly connected to your ability to say things in a three-dimensional way. And so we do have courses that are focused on it, but in addition to the courses, all USC students get LinkedIn Learning for free. And so we do have a series of LinkedIn Learning tutorials that we have libraries saved for our students. And we also have video recorded tutorials that are saved that are distributed to students to support them.
Thank you so much. So I hear that there's Rhino and Grasshopper. So I'm just wondering if there's any other program that USC student also focus on. I'm learning Grasshopper right now just to get head start, but I'm wondering if there's any other program that.
I will say Rhino and Grasshopper are the primary modeling platforms for design studios. Revit is used in our construction documentation courses. So not in our design studios, but only in the documentation courses and our professional practice courses. We also are using the full Adobe suite. So all USC students get Adobe not for free, but highly subsidized. They can get the whole creative suite for $80 for the year. And then Rhino, again, I believe, so Rhino, all students get for free. USC basically pays for it. And then Adobe is for a modest price. And then other platforms are used depending on what studio you might be in. So there are some studios that are using Houdini, others that are using Maya. Generally speaking, we do allow students to use the software platforms of their choice as long as it's not Revit in the design studio, because I think Revit is one. Well, Revit and SketchUp are the two that I personally like. If I see you doing it, I will actually throw you out. Mostly because those are so highly constrained that you start. They actually define what you design. Right, like it's not the other way around. You don't define what they do; they define what you do.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
By the way,
have time
did I
for-
meet you at Ball State?
Me?
Yeah, did I meet you at Ball State?
Yeah, at the dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave a lecture at Ball State a few weeks ago, and Sarah was at the dinner.
Nice seeing you again.
Likewise.
Do we have time for one last question?
Yeah, Rosalind.
Rosalind.
Hey everyone, thanks for the great presentation. I do have a question on opportunities to look at sustainability as well as environmental justice in the master's, the 3-year master's in architecture.
So I'm sorry, Rosalind, your audio was a little choppy for me. I didn't quite. I heard spatial justice and environmental something, but I didn't hear what the context of the question was.
Yeah, I took off my headphones. So I'm interested in opportunities that you have in looking at sustainability as well as environmental justice in the 3 years master's program.
Yep. So we do offer a certificate in sustainable design as well as a certificate in building science. Both of those two things focus heavily on those topics, but all of those topics are also integrated into all of our design studios as a whole and all of our courses as a whole. So it's a kind of running theme through the school, not only in terms of like the courses that are dedicated to it. So there is a huge number of courses that are dedicated to that topic, but it is a topic that's being explored in every course that we offer. I would say it's one of those things that is a common ground in everything that we do. There is also a number of organizations within the school, within the campus as well. So there are sustainability initiatives throughout the entire campus. And then in terms of more social justice or spatial justice related things, we have a student organization called Architecture and Advocacy. And Architecture and Advocacy works with underserved communities in the local area using design as a medium for engaging them and bringing them into conversations about how design can improve their lives.
Yeah, thank you for that. And have a good night, everyone. I know it's kind of late, but I'll pass it back to y'all. There's one question.
Thanks, Rosalind. All right.
All right.
Don't think we have any more questions. Is that correct?
That's good. If you guys have a follow-up questions, like I said, I put our contact information in the chat. I can put it in the chat one more time before we head out. Feel free to email me if you have any questions. And I'd be happy to talk to you more about or connect with professor or faculty if you have specific questions, but happy to answer your questions. And again, if you start your application, I will be reaching out to you if I haven't already. So you'll be hearing from me.
Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure meeting all of you, and hope to see your application soon.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your great questions. And likewise, I look forward to seeing your applications.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.